Welcome to the WorkJoy Jam. I'm Beth Stallwood, your podcast host. I'm really excited in this episode to be joined by a fantastic sports person. She'll tell you more about which sports, Shaunagh Brown. And Shaunagh has had such an interesting and varied career, both in sport and outside sport. And when I was introduced to her, I just found her story so incredible, really, really inspiring in terms of how she approaches things. I love how she has always asked for help, how she's always done it in a way that has helped her get what she needs, how she's so positive about things, even when things are tough. And she's just a real inspiration to me, and I really hope you love this conversation. I know I did. Welcome to the WorkJoy Jam. In this episode, I am massively excited to be joined by Shaunagh Brown. And when I first had a conversation with Shaunagh, I was so excited, impressed, engaged with her story, with where she's come from, and where she is now, and all the amazing things she's doing. And I can't wait to share this conversation with you. So, Shaunagh, first of all, over to you. Can you tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
So firstly, hello Beth, hello to everyone listening. I can tell you in brief, or try and keep it brief. So as of at the moment, I am a professional rugby player. I play rugby as a tight head prop for Harlequins in England, and then alongside that, I am a board member of the Student Rugby Football Union. I'm part of a feasibility study looking into Women's Lions rugby tour happening. And there's, as we'll get into, like there's so much that has led me there in the first place, but previously been to Commonwealth Games as a hammer thrower. I've competed in many a world junior championships, but like I said, I'm very sure we will get into all of the good stuff later on.
Amazing. And I love it that you're not just giving that one job you have here. There's many different features of what you're doing. And one thing I didn't know until right now is the feasibility of a women's Lions rugby tour. That would be amazing. I would love to watch that. So I'm excited. Hopefully that will happen. So, Shaunagh, would you be able to do for us like your potted career history? Because I think what you've done in the past is totally fascinating. I think everybody else will as well. And so often when we see people like you, Shaunagh, and I was saying to you the other day, I was at Twickenham and I saw a massive picture of you on the side of the stadium and was like, that's so exciting. We see you for who you are and what you do now, and not the journey that led you here. And I would just love for you to tell everybody about the kind of different things you've done, the journey of your career, and how all of these things have led you to where you are today. So take it as you will from wherever you feel is the most relevant, and tell us about your career story.
Yeah, so like you said, if I start sort of towards the end and where I am now, but if I looked back, say 10 years ago, I said to myself in 2021, I'd be not only a professional rugby player, but playing rugby for England. And like you say, have a huge picture of me across Twickenham Stadium, even across the road at Twickenham Stoop at Harlequins. There's plenty of pictures of me and the other girls up. Like I would say, I have a laugh. Not only would I say have a laugh, I'd say, what is rugby? So I grew up not knowing anything about rugby, and just I guess it's part of my mantra is just to do things and give things a go and see what happens. And that's just pretty much where I am now. I'm still just seeing what happens. And people say,
Yeah.
"What do you want to go do when you grow up?" And I'm still like, I don't know. Who knows? I'm still got a lot of many years ahead of me. But
Yeah.
if we take it right back, so I started in sport. Like the reason I am who I am today is almost entirely because of sport. There's obviously external factors like family, friends, and so much
Mm.
help and support along the way. But it was all help and support along the way of my sporting journey.
Yeah.
And I like sort of first got into formal sport age 12 doing athletics, and that was shot put, discus. And like my first life lesson, I guess, was in that, in terms of I went to athletics track thinking that I wanted to run, because that's what you done an athletics track, and that's what athletics clubs are
Yeah.
surely made of, is just runners and sprinters. So I went down there with the intention of running and being a sprinter. Soon found out I'm not particularly fast, and that's still true to this day. And actually, not only am I not fast, but it's, for me, it's actually pretty boring. Like just running around. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, good luck to all the people that do it. There's many of those who are very good at it. But for me and how my brain works, it was like it wasn't for me. And then realized within the sport of athletics there was so many other aspects to it, and the one I picked out was shot put and discus, and there's actually a bit of a referral from the sprint coach, and she actually just printed out a bit from the coaching manual and said, here's how to throw a shot put, like I think you'd be good at it, here's a printout, go and have your time, like it in a nice positive way. Like
Yeah.
I can't actually help you, in her honesty, like I can't really help you with that, but here's the tools to go and sort of help yourself, as it were. So like I say, got into formal sport age 12, with shot put and discus, and then that in itself has just taken me across so many different places in the world, places in the country, taught me so many sort of life lessons along the way. And like I say, starting right from the beginning, i.e., it's not always the headline things that you're good at, and actually you need to try things to know that you're not good at them or don't enjoy them, because the two are again two different things.
Mm.
And then from there, sort of went through all of school doing athletics, and a lot of the reasons why I, like I said, experienced so much of the world and met so many different types of people was because of athletics and traveling and with my club. And I I really, now I look back, it was a privilege to be able to be around so many different types of people, whether that be skin color, personality types, education, how we speak, what countries we're from, what countries our parents are from, how we came to be in this country. And actually so many people, even now as adults, don't have that privilege, and
Yeah.
they are around a lot of the same type of people all the time and don't realize how much joy there is out there in the world to experience. So yeah, pretty privileged in that, in terms of growing up, like that was very much my normal, like people from all over the world, people with different accents, different foods, different hair, different clothing, all of that was my everyday growing up.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then like within athletics, like took it pretty serious pretty quickly, because in my first competition ever I got a bronze medal, and
Wow.
I'd not really won a medal before, and it was just like, oh, I'm actually, not only is it good fun, but I'm actually quite good at it, it seems. And then it was just the confidence from other people who would also tell me. And again, that's another life lesson, is from people encouraging me and reminding me that like you are good at it, you can do it. Because
Yeah.
even though like the distance might not have seemed far, or it sort of came sort of almost naturally to me, it's still other people saying, like, so many people work a long time to get those kind of distances, or to be able to throw the way you do. You've definitely got a talent for it. So it's just that recognition from other people. And as we get onto it, it's actually how I got into rugby, was recommendation from other people, which is why like we need to expose as many people as we can to as many different life situations, whether it's sporting, working, family, friends, as we can. And then, like I say, within athletics, took it real seriously. And by the time I was 17, I was competing for Great Britain in the World Youth Championships. So that's like an under 18 age group. And then
Yeah.
taking it on from then, it was, so started at World Youth Championships, then went on to European Juniors, which is under 20s. And then we had Commonwealth Youth Games, which again is a sort of under 19 event. um, that was in India. Even to this day, that sort of top three best experiences of my life. And that whole concept of meeting so many people from so many different
Mm.
parts of the world. And yes, I got to do that at World Championships, but the World Championships is only athletics, whereas Commonwealth Youth Games is a whole range of sports, and people from places who are not actually even countries, like they're just territories. And like people from islands that there's like 2,000 people whole population,
Yeah.
or even like just a few thousand. It's like it was just mind blowing to even listen to their stories of how they train, and the facilities that they don't have, and the equipment they don't have, and what they have to do. And like they're having to go out to work and provide for the whole family, being a 15-year-old, being the main breadwinner of a whole family, and how they live, like types of buildings, types of homes, like all of that I got from a young age. Like I was 18, 19 at the time. And it's just realizing how privileged we are in the UK, and like to
Yeah.
be in so many situations. So definitely like one of the best experiences of my life, and being able to go and watch any sport I wanted any day of the week. Like once I'd finished competing, I was just going around it, and most of it by myself actually. Just other people just wanted to chill out or watch the headline events, but I was anywhere that had a ticket, or like I just like to keep busy. And again, that's a theme throughout my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Commonwealth Youth Games, then a World Junior Games, then come to a bit of a sticking point with the transition from being a junior athlete to a senior. And ultimately, I actually changed event in that period, and then mm, went to the Commonwealth Games 2014 in Glasgow as a hammer thrower. So I'd gone from doing shot put and discus my whole sort of childhood and as a
Mm,
youth, changing events, like getting older, changing events, and finally competed like at the highest level in hammer throw. So
amazing. And hammer throwing is the one that I call like the spinny roundy chucky one. That's the right one I'm thinking of,
yeah,
isn't
to be
it?
fair, they're all quite spinny, roundy, shucky. It's the one that Miss
With
Trunchbull in Matilda
yes,
is what.
that's the one. That's exactly how I picture it. Is this is Trunchbull in
Yeah,
Matilda?
yeah, yeah. And that was a stereotype I had to juggle with for growing up, etc. But it's yeah, like I say, 2014 Commonwealth Games, representing England in the hammer throw, made it to the final. Didn't throw too well in the final. Very disappointed with myself, like a lot of tears and a lot of upset. But then like that's kind of when I started to fall out of love with it the year after that. And I always said to myself, like I was never paid to do it. It was never something that was a career option in terms of
Yeah,
income or anything like that. And I will go into my jobs afterwards. But I always said to myself, if I stopped enjoying it, then it was time to move on. Yeah, and then 2015, the end of 2015, that's actually when I found rugby. And I guess like my headline fact in terms of rugby is I had my first game of rugby 15s in December 2015, and by November 2017, less than 2 years later, I was running out for my first England cap, my first England game. So it was a pretty pretty good ride, pretty fast ride. But now, yeah, just reveling in that. But if we do you want to go into careers yet, or
yeah. I mean, first of all, before you kind of, because I know that there's a whole other track, isn't there? There's a whole other story around your career. So this is your sporting career, but that time frame from your first ever trying it out to kind of being in the team is amazingly quick, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it's just it's unheard of, but it's not. It's mainly because I had a good foundation.
Yeah,
And if you do sport, and it just is my, again, like a mantra, like do something now and you never know where it can lead you. So the only reason why I did excel so quickly in rugby is because I had such a good foundation of
yeah,
strength, speed, and power. But then also the sort of the mentality side of it as well, and being able to
yeah,
commit. So once I was committed to training, like no matter what, no matter whose birthdays, no matter like weddings, anniversaries, family parties, it was about going to training, and it was about going to games, and that sort of competition elite mentality. And
yeah,
that all came from athletics and from my coach, and that need to be the best almost. And like I told myself when I started playing rugby that it was just something to do, because I'd finished my international career. I
yeah,
thought I just need something to do of an evening, because I find it very difficult to just go home and chill out like 5 days. I can chill out with the best of them, but 5 to 7 days a week, no chance. I just need something to do. So
yeah.
initially
And
just told myself I was going to chill out, and yeah, here I am
and,
still.
and here you are on the edge of the Twickenham Stadium in the England team. I love
Yeah.
it. Um, tell us about, so as you said, when you were doing the hammer throwing, when you were kind of competing, that's not a career that kind of pays the bills. It's not something that you can earn a living through. So you were also having a kind of career on the side of it. And tell us some highlights of the career you had in the world outside of sport.
Yeah, so my career, like my careers, as it were, headlines are the first proper job I had was an apprentice as a British Gas installation engineer. And ultimately, they're the people who come round, rip your old boiler out, rip your central heating system out, radiators, etc., and put new ones in. It is the simplest way to describe it. Um, and then after that, went on to commercial diving. So that's underwater, um, just labouring. So you look at anything that's halfway out the water, there's a lot of structure in the water. So sometimes it's literally just a bit of maintenance, going and checking anything that needs changing. It's so broad. It is a whole sort of engineering department in itself. And then from there went on to being a firefighter. But like going back to British Gas, they supported me so well in the end in terms of with the Commonwealth Games. So I was with them for between 2010 and 2015, like in the height of my athletics career.
Yeah.
And it was like a fantastic opportunity. Always knew growing up, like I didn't want to go to university. A levels, I had tried them, but I went into it thinking they're probably not for me because I was more of the practical learner. So I did
Yeah.
give A levels a go and tried it for a year. Finished that year, it wasn't for me. So it was about looking for an apprenticeship. And yeah, found British Gas. And at the time, I wasn't specifically looking for either a gas apprenticeship nor an installation. Like for me, it was just about applying for apprenticeships. So I
Yeah.
applied for everything from one of my favourite ones was within Royal Mail. They maintain their own vehicle, their fleets. So
Yeah.
it was a mechanic with Royal Mail. I think I applied to Sky, sort of Virgin Media, Network Rail. So any of those huge companies, BMW and their mechanics, any of those huge companies with apprentices and apprenticeships, I was applying for them. And British Gas just happened to be one that got back to me and came up trumps in the end.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it just got supported, like I say, through my sporting career with that, and got to a point where I asked for this help and support in terms of extra time off work and sort of a change of job role to support my athletics career.
Mm.
And I just went straight to the top of actually the wider company of British Gas called Centrica, and just asked for all of these things, hoping that I might get half of them in terms of support. And it ultimately like spoke to the top, and they passed me to this person, passed me to these people, and like everyone just wanted to help.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, made it happen, and made the Commonwealth Games in 2014 even possible, all thanks to British Gas and wanting to help and support me.
I love that for two different reasons. The first one is, isn't it a great example, as if you're really clear about what you need and what you want and ask for it,
Mm-hmm.
how much people are willing to help. And it's so interesting. So many people say, "Oh, I couldn't possibly ask for these things," but if you don't ask, you will never get it.
Yeah, it's literally that. And I actually don't know where I got that trait from, but it's just, well, do you want to, like, it's that kind of moaning thing. If you moan about something, you have to then do something about
Mm.
trying to fix it. If you've
Yes.
not tried to fix it, or you've not tried to make it better, then you have no right to moan. Or
Yeah.
even if you've not told the person,
Yeah.
this is not quite right,
Exactly.
then you've got no right to moan. So really, I just wanted an excuse to moan. I thought if I ask for this, they don't give it to me, I can have a moan. But they gave it all to me, so
Yeah.
there's no moaning allowed.
In my world, Shaunagh, I'm very similar to you. I have a one moan rule, which is allowed to moan at me once. But if after that you come and moan at me again, you haven't done anything about it, I'm not
Yeah.
going to listen to you, because you have to take action on those things. I love that. It's like before I moan, I'll just take the action, but actually the action means I don't need to moan. Wow, that's great. And the second thing, which is totally random, that I really love about it is there are people in this country who you have fitted a new boiler for, who probably don't even know that you're now this person who they see on the TV playing rugby. Isn't that interesting about, like, the experience of people in different situations?
Yeah. There's definitely a few people out there who wouldn't know where I am now. There's actually a family that did get in touch with me afterwards, like once I'd sort of started playing rugby for England and started building a profile. They said, "Oh, you came and fitted my boiler back in like 2013 or whatever." So I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Oh,
Yeah,
how cool, they remembered you. You obviously leave a lovely impression with
yeah,
people. And isn't it great there that, alongside your sporting career, you've had support, but you've also had, like, those are really interesting jobs as well, like fitting gas boilers, doing the diving, being in these situations of being a firefighter. I feel like you've had a very practical hands-on career in your non-sport career, and then a real practical hands-on career in your sporting career as well.
yeah. It's more to do with my personality type. Like back in 2017, I tried to do an office job for 3 months. It was just while I was looking for diving work. Honestly, it affected my whole life. I was just, number one, I was bored all the time, but number two, like I wasn't as hungry as I usually am. I was always tired. Like sitting down actually makes me more tired when I
Yeah.
go to train. I think I've been sitting down all day and I'm still not ready for training when I get there. So it's that not being tired at night and not being able to sleep as much. And I was just like, wow, this is a different way of life. And it really wasn't for me. So it's just
Yeah.
kind of that identifying who I am and what I need as a person, and then taking that into your work, and not necessarily feeling, some people, yes, you might feel trapped, but again, it's that doing something about it. And rather than come up with the excuses, just think, yes, you may have to make sacrifices, small or very large, but ultimately, like, it's about being happy, not only in work but in life. And like for me, it was just realizing who I am as a person, what makes me happy, like within sport, outside of sport. And if I'm happy outside of sport, it actually makes me even happier when I do my sport.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because you've had for many years this kind of dual track career going on, right? You've been doing a sport on one side and you've been doing your kind of business or, side on the other of it. And actually looking at how those two things complement each other and support each other are not necessarily one is one and one is the other, and they give you different things.
Yeah, yeah, but and then there's a lot from my sport that goes into work, and like learning how to speak to people, learning how to present myself at an
Mm,
interview, like learning how people view me, learning commitment, dedication, the importance of arriving on time, the importance of applying yourself fully to a task, the importance of asking for help as well. So like a lot of my work life is enhanced by my sporting. And I would say like sport does so much more for me than work, and sport enhances work as opposed to work enhancing sport.
mm.
um like I say, yeah, I've had to do both most of the time, most of my years, until 2019 when we were awarded professional contracts to play rugby as women. But up until that moment, doing a 12-13 hour day, as in leave my house at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work, having to go straight to training, not getting back till sort of 10-11 o'clock at night, like that was what I'd done. That was just, is what, it was my life. And I,
Yeah.
I didn't complain about it. That's what I chose to do. I could, sometimes you might have a few down days or a few down weeks and you think, oh, I'm like knackered all the time, why do I do this? But ultimately I chose to get a job where I had to leave before 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't have
Yeah.
time to go home and eat. I would just eat on the road, etc. But it then got me the success elsewhere. So it's about those choices and me making my own informed choices.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting one, isn't it? And I would directly rate it back to the difference between understanding the choices you made and working with the choices versus moaning about the choices you haven't made or that you have made but you've not really understood yet.
Yeah, yeah. And then sort of a lot of people, when I'll say, oh, I've got this opportunity come up, or I've got this support, and they go, well, how'd you get that? I said, well, I asked. Like, whoa, no,
Yeah.
you don't do that. I went, all right, maybe you don't, but I did. And look,
Like what happened?
yeah. And it's that kind of that fear of asking. And again, back to the having a moan. The first thing I'll reply to that is, okay, what have you done about it? Or have you told that person? Oh, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, I can't do that. Well, why not? Would you like me to tell them? Oh, no, 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 I don't want you to tell them either. Okay, so that's it now. You've no longer got the right to moan about it because you're not trying to help fix it in any way.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you're I'm loving the fact that you've had these careers that have enabled you to do your sports stuff. It's been like a big hard slog doing both at the same time, but it's a choice you made because you really wanted to do it and you loved it. It, and then 2019 comes and you get a professional contract. What did that feel like?
It was a lot of mixed emotions actually, because it was, I'd applied to the fire service, Kent Fire and Rescue, got a place, one of 24, after thousands as had applied. So getting a place in itself was an achievement. And then I completed my training. We had our pass out parade, and I was working as a firefighter for a year. And then I've got this offer of a professional contract, which on the surface I would have to give up the fire service and give up that career that I
Yeah.
just spent the last 2 years working so hard for. So it's kind of like, well, actually, I'm not sure I want a professional rugby contract, because I'm only going to play rugby until, for another few years. It's a very physical sport. You can't do it forever. You can't do it for a long time. but the fire service I could do for a long time, and being a firefighter, and then the different branches I could go into within that, like ultimately the fire service could have been a job for life, and it
Yeah.
still can be a job for life. So I had to have a little battle with myself about that, and the possibility of actually maybe saying no to the professional rugby contract, but still trying to train around fire service, because again, I had so much support from Kent Fire and Rescue, and like they made it possible that even when I was working full time as a firefighter, essentially I was training full time as well, just because of the way you can do the shifts and
Yeah.
work around it and be so flexible. I was having the best of both worlds, and tiring, yes, but I was able to train full time as a rugby player and be a full time firefighter. So it's a bit of a battle, but then ultimately came up with, well, I just asked for help actually, and I guess a theme running through it. Wrote to the top of the chief executive of Kent Fire and Rescue, and I said, I've got an offer of a professional contract, but I don't want to give up my career in a fire service. Like, can we do anything about it? And I remember it was about 10 o'clock at night, because I was on shift at the time. Sent the email, and within about half an hour, bear in mind now, she is chief exec of like the whole of Kent Fire. She's a busy woman, and I got a reply within half an hour, and I was like, right, this is a very good sign straight away. And it was pretty much a, yeah, I'm sure we can do something. Like, let's talk to the HR director. I was like, right, okay, well, that's a good start. And then got it. So I was still employed by the fire service. I just changed role and changed the amount of hours I was doing, so it would complement my time with rugby. Because another thing that was important to me, and still is not just concentrating on one thing entirely at all times, because for me that's when I get almost too caught up in it, and it would get to a point, if I had a bad training session, then I had nothing else to look forward to. So it
Right.
affected the rest of my day. Or had a bad competition, especially in athletics, had a bad competition, and it affected the rest of my weekend, because I had nothing else to think about as such. So I knew, like, being a completely full time and having nothing else with rugby wasn't the best thing for me. So it was an ideal situation in terms of the offer from the chief exec
Yeah.
and the HR director. We can offer you a role with inclusion, and I was working as an inclusion officer within Kent Fire and Rescue for sort of the last 2 years. I'm currently on sabbatical with them now, so I am full time rugby, and then just have plenty of other bits going on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's that theme of asking for help, and
Yeah.
asking in a nice positive way. Because actually, I did ask one day, like, why did you help me? You didn't have to. You could have just said, oh no, it won't work out. Sorry, see you next time. And she said, well, just because number one, you asked, and number two, you asked nicely. Like, you didn't
Yeah.
demand anything. You just asked if there was anything we can do, and we want to help people. As much as some people are begrudged by the people at the top, and they think no one is there to help us, is that we actually want to help people, and you asked for help, so we offered it, and wish more people would do it.
Isn't that interesting? That whole, you know, rather than asking and saying you need to do something, but what can we do, and getting involved in that conversation about what's possible. And I also think there's a theme here, isn't there, about actually not going locally, but going to the top of the organization, going, this is what I'm trying to do. I'd love it. I'd love to make this happen. About how such positive responses you've got. And I'm sure like there will be people out here going, but I've tried that and it didn't work. And it's not going to work every time, is it? Like, as you said, they could have just said no. But you had choices there. It was a no or a maybe, right? The maybe is a better chance than just not even trying.
Yeah, yeah, and it's exactly that. It's the, like, as much as the success I do have, I've been rejected, like, I don't know, 5 times for every one time I've had success.
Yeah.
And people will only see the successful ones, of course, because I'm not going to shout about the times I've been rejected. But it's understanding that you have to ask to get. And yes, you might get told no on occasions, or you can't have everything you've asked for, but you can have this. It's just kind of being able to put yourself out there with the
Yeah.
potential for rejection, and then being able to come back from that. And that is a skill in itself. And as I've learned, like, so many people don't put themselves out there because they're afraid of being rejected, or afraid of not being liked or not being accepted, when actually, like, that's the power of you as a person. You need to put
Yeah.
yourself out there, because you'll probably find that you might feel you're against the norm, and you're not going with the tide, but there's a few others as well that also feel that way, but because no
Mm,
one else has spoken up, then they don't speak up. It's like when
yeah.
you've just got a very dominant person in a room who has a very strong view on something, you just assume because nobody else has said anything, they all agree. But actually, one person stands up and disagrees, and then somebody else does, and then it's just because you're quiet about something doesn't mean you agree or disagree. So it's just being a bit more vocal with it, and you have to take the rough with the smooth, and take rejection, but also with rejection does sometimes come success.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing, rejection. And I always say to people when they say, but I'm scared of getting rejected, is I feel like rejection hurts quite a lot in the moment you get rejected, right? It's like an acute pain for a moment. But actually it's quite easy in the long run to forget about it, really. Whereas disappointment of not having done anything is one of those things I think can eat away at you a little bit. And it becomes a bit of a chronic thing versus an acute, oh, that stung a bit that I got rejected, that I'm disappointed I didn't try, or I could have done something different, is in the long term a worse feeling.
Yeah, it's that thing of the what if, and the regrets. And actually, if you ask me what are my biggest regrets, I don't really have a lot. One of them, I guess, well, the main one would be not taking the opportunity of a scholarship to America for sport. But then, as I said earlier, I didn't want to go to university, so actually maybe it wouldn't have been a great decision.
Yeah.
But like it's just that trying to not have too many regrets, because like you say, the rejection in that moment hurts. But especially me and my personality type, I'm going to go off and find something else to do, something else to concentrate on,
Yeah.
because I know if I don't, I will think about it over and over again and think, oh, what if I done this
Mm.
differently? What if I use this word? Like, what if I was in
Yeah.
this situation? So actually, I know that, like, to keep me happy, I have to keep busy. And it's
Yeah.
that, okay, what's next? That's happened. Yes, it hurts. And as much as people say, oh, don't think about it, move on, it's very hard to not think about something that hurts.
Yeah,
It's
it
then
is.
about what you do next. And for me, I know I then have to concentrate and think about something else that I'm going to do. And whether it's related to what I was rejected to, i.e., improving myself and then going back to original proposal, or something completely different. And whether that's changing career, changing sport, even in terms of like friendship circles, like is that the best friendship circle for me to be in? Is that, does I need that person in my life? And it can get very deep, and as to who, like, who's around you, and like the guilt you feel, and especially in terms of family. And yeah, it's just there's so much, like, these things are always going on in my head, and there's a lot. But it's
Yeah.
ultimately it's about yourself, and having to be selfish sometimes, and it's not the fashionable thing to do, but actually it can be the right thing for you to do.
Yeah. Two things that I'm just really reflecting on from what you've been saying. And the first one goes back to this point about actually having more than one thing to do for you. Kind of, you didn't quite use these words, but in my head, the way I was interpreting it is being able to have some kind of reality, some kind of grounding that isn't just the one thing you're working on. And whether in people's lives that's sport as it is in yours, like not just doing rugby, because that can get very intense and very much, get too emotionally involved, all of that kind of stuff. Having something else to balance that out and to be a grounding force. And I'm thinking for people in work, I often end up working with people who where work has become their entire life things, and they've forgotten that doing something outside of work, whether that's sports or arts or having a hobby or seeing people or just doing something for themselves, how important that is to actually be good at your work as well.
Yeah, it's when I go back to, I think, who am I? If you looked at my Instagram, if you looked at my social media, if you took away my rugby pictures, anything that involved any sort of rugby, who am I? Like, can you tell what sort of person I am if you take away the main chunk of my life? And there was a point a couple of years ago where I'd say, actually, you probably couldn't. And that could also be to do with how much you're putting out there on something public like social
Yeah.
media. But it's just like, if you spoke to a friend who, like, not a particularly close one, but someone who knows you, would they be able to say what you stand for? And although on the face of it, I am very consumed with rugby, and, like, joked about earlier, spending my time off, I go and watch rugby, go and watch other people play rugby, go and watch other people train for rugby. But I just got a lot going on, so just a lot of rugby going on. But again, that's my choice. But also, when I speak to younger people who are either applying to jobs or applying to universities, it's reminding them like you need to stick out. And these days, you have like, um, I know the levels have changed. Like your 1 to 9 grades, but equivalent would have been me like A's and A stars.
Yeah.
If you had 3 A's at A levels, you're not going to stick out that much because there's a lot of people who have 3 A's. But if you had 3 A's and a sport or a hobby or something to actually talk about, you're going to
Yeah.
stand out a lot more than people around you. And not only because you've got something to talk about it, but you can then like refer to those situations. And when I actually applied for the fire service, it was it's like a questions based interview, a scenario based, and they would ask me questions and I'd have to answer it with experiences in my life.
Yeah.
And of the, I think there's like 6 questions, but of those six, at least 5 of them were rugby. Like I answered them with rugby related answers. And I got to a point where I was apologizing, like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to use another rugby example. And like, no, 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 that's exactly what we want. Like, we want to hear your example through life, however you've got there. So it's just that what makes you stand out. And especially as a woman, like doing sport or doing something that you're passionate about, like,
Yeah.
it just makes you stand out so much more.
Definitely. And employers look for that kind of broad range of skills that, all the, as you said, all the skills you learned from sport, you've taken into your other side of your career because they're all important and they're all, people talk a lot about transferable skills, but they're kind of life skills that you can take with you in any situation you're in. The other thing that I was going to pick up on is this point about, sometimes being a bit selfish. And I've been saying for a couple of years, and you might have heard me say it on other podcasts or in other things, is that I think in the English language, we need a new word. And I haven't quite discovered what this word could be yet, but maybe you can help me, Shaunagh. Is we automatically assume in our heads, because even you apologized for it then, that the word selfish is something negative. We assume it's a bad thing to be selfish. When actually, if you really understand what selfish means, and this is why we need another word for it, where it is looking after yourself, it is doing the things that bring you joy, it is making sure that your well-being, your sports, your happiness is there, that enables you to be great for other people. So it's actually not a selfish, not a negatively selfish act to look after yourself. In fact, if we all took a little bit more care of ourselves, whether that's physical, mental, emotional well-being, whichever version of it, where we sort out the happiness or the joy or the things that we do well and all those things that come together, we would be better in service of other people.
You're exactly right, and right in terms of like selfish is associated with being negative. And yeah, we do need a new word. What about what about like one ship? I'm being at one with myself.
At one ship,
One
oh my,
ship, you like that? I've just made that up on the spot.
oh,
I
I've
don't
been
I don't know.
searching for years, Shauna, and within like 3 seconds you have the answer for me. I love it.
I've been quite at one ship these last few months, but then
Yeah.
so, I don't know. It might need a bit of work, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love it. But yeah, keep thinking about that because it's, that's the stuff you are talking about isn't selfish, but we don't have a word to describe it. And
yeah,
people always talk about like self care, but when people think of self care, the kind of yoga pants, smelly candle stuff comes to mind for me. And
yeah.
if that works for you, brilliant. It's not my version of self care. It's not might not be your version of self care, but what is that word that just allows us and gives us permission and thinks about the positive versions of looking after ourselves in the way that works for us as individuals? I think that would be something for us all to really consider in our lives.
There is a phrase that the youths use, and I must admit I do it myself as well. You just say, "I'm doing me." So
Oh
instead
yeah.
of being selfish, just I'm just doing me for a while. What does that mean? Well, I'm just thinking about myself.
Yeah.
Just doing me.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? I'm just doing me. I'm like, and isn't it funny how sometimes the young people have all the answers, and then we bash it out of them
Yeah,
through education systems and work systems that kind of want people to fit into nice, neat boxes,
yeah.
versus kind of being really human. And I really hope that the next generation are able to keep that sense with them.
I think they are, and will continue. Just when you have conversations, and sometimes it can come across as sort of negative or bad, or you think, oh no, like what's this next generation doing? But actually, there's a lot of self-empowerment coming, and some young people don't really seem to have much passion or much sort of power or influence towards a subject or just any interest, actually, which can be worrying. But actually then there's a side of the younger generation where they are self-empowered and they do make their own decisions, and they're not afraid to stand up to mum, dad, auntie, stepdad, stepmom, whatever it is, and say no, like I'm not going to my granddad's birthday party because I don't like any of my family.
Yeah.
And that's probably probably not the best example, but it's that kind of not not necessarily having to keep up with the Joneses, and just
Yeah.
not doing something because it's what people do. Or I don't know, what kind of food you want to have at Christmas. No, I don't want turkey this year. Why?
Yeah.
Well, I just don't fancy it. Well, it's what we've always done. So it's that kind of just being happy, making their own decisions based on their self and their feeling and their
Yeah.
emotion at the time.
And I
And
really hope that leads to like this lack of peer pressure on people. And I remember that you talk about traditions there. I think it's Brené Brown, who I absolutely love, who says that when people use like, well, it's tradition as an excuse, it's just peer pressure from dead relatives. That's what
oh,
it is.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, it is.
So peer pressure from dead relatives is tradition. And why do we take that? Why do we do it? And breaking free of those stereotypes and the things we always have to do can be a really good thing.
Yeah, there's even around sort of sexuality at the moment, and so many young people will not identify as heterosexual or gay because it's just what it is. Like, some I'm with a girl, I'm a girl with a girl at the moment, but
Yeah.
in a month I might be with a boy. Like, I don't want to put a label on it. It's just fluid. It's just
Yeah.
what it is, and not necessarily having to say it out loud. Sometimes just go with the flow and doing things because you want to do things. It's just that sign of happiness and taking ownership on yourself, and then that's when the not being able to moan comes into it, because
Yeah.
you've made your own choices. And yes, it can be very difficult going against tradition, and actually emotionally draining as well, to just ask why all the time, and you're told, oh, it's just because that's the way we do it. For me,
Yeah.
it's not an answer. It's just, okay, so can we change it? Oh, no, no, no. Well, why not? Because that's just the way we've always done it. Right, so
Yeah.
basically you're telling me I'm not welcome here. Or, it's just that sense of tradition is not necessarily, it's not a reason to continue doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
There's respect levels, but then there's also, oh, come on, let's move on here now, guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's so amazing to. I honestly, Sean, I could talk to you for another like 12 hours. I think about your amazing career, and I'm absolutely loving it. But we're coming to the point where I want to ask you, if it's okay, some of our quick fire questions.
Yep.
Right? Are we ready for them? So, question number one, I'm really excited to hear your response to this one, is for you, what's always guaranteed to bring you some work joy?
Being outside, being active, in short.
Love that. Because it's not just rugby then, is it? It's the other stuff, being outside, being active,
No,
you
because
know,
even on my
everything.
days off, like, it'll just be getting out for a walk. And even when it's cold, like, there's nothing more enjoy doing when it's cold, is actually wrapping up real snug and real warm.
Yeah.
Everything from hats, gloves, scarves, going outside for a walk, but then looking forward to coming home and having that cup of hot chocolate, and putting a film on a
Oh,
Sunday
like,
evening.
yeah, like the snuggly
Yeah.
warm, snuggle up.
Yeah,
I went out
exactly.
this morning massively underdressed for a very cold walk with the dog, wishing I'd put about 3 more layers on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, the sun's deceiving. The sun's being deceiving at the
I was like,
moment.
it's sunny. A jumper and a little gilet will be fine.
Yeah.
No, I needed
Oh,
a
no.
coat. I needed a hat. I needed a scarf. It was very cold when I got home. Question number two. What book are you currently reading? Or, a podcast, TED Talk, anything like that. We'd love to know a bit about kind of what you're learning through things that are out there.
Yeah, so one of my favorites is a book called Natives by a guy called Akala. And I actually listen to most of my books on audiobooks rather than read them, because I spend
I
a lot of time
love
in my car.
listening.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
yeah, Natives by Akala. But then also one I'm actually listening to at the moment is by Gina Yashere, British comedian, and her
Yeah.
book's called Cat Candid.
Ah, okay. Is it
So
good? Because I've not read it yet.
yeah, yeah, it's really good. And listening to her upbringing, and I've followed Jeannie Asheray in terms of her career, and like, I think she's hilarious, and watching her on TV and seeing all the things that she's keeping up with. But actually now to see, like we said earlier, to see where she started, like where she is now. She wasn't necessarily destined to get there, and it's kind of things like having a Nigerian parent, and that thought of her mum insisted she would be a doctor as she grew up. But it's that going against your parent and how strong you have to be as a
Yeah.
person to go against your strong parent who's telling you to be a doctor, for her to kind of say, actually, I want to be into arts. And not only do I want to be into arts, but I want to be a comedian, which we're getting to the point where her mum saying that you can't, it's not a proper job, like you're not doing that. So yeah, it's real.
Oh,
It's a good book. It's funny as well. There's a lot of funny
yeah.
parts, and like, she's hilarious as she is. But it's a
Yeah.
good listen.
Oh, I think she's great. Watching her on TV and things like that. So I'd love to hear her backstory. So I'm going to put that one on my audiobook list. Thank you. Um, right. Question 3. What's the best or most useful bit of advice that someone has given you in your life that you always find yourself coming back to?
So I've got two of my favourite quotes. One was given to me by my athletics coach John Hillier when he went to South Africa. Came back with a fridge magnet, and on the fridge magnet it said, "Winners are dreamers who never give up." And it's
Oh,
that kind of, like, physically I don't have all the best attributes to be the best athlete in the world. Like, there's so many more women out there who are taller, who are stronger, like have better coordination, mobility, but they've not achieved because they've not dreamt it can happen. Whereas I spend a lot of time thinking, oh, what if, and I try and make that happen. So it's that's a kind of dreamer aspect of me, and that stubbornness to keep going with it. So yeah, winner is a dreamer who never gives up. But
brilliant.
then also there's a Hebrew quote of, if not now, then when? If not me, then who? So it's that kind of,
Yeah.
well, just get on with it. And nobody else is going to stand up in a room and do it. So be that person to stand up in a room. And with the being on the student rugby football union board, as much as I spoke about wanting different people in boardrooms, wanting different people to make decisions, well, I thought, why not do it myself? I can't just
Yeah.
keep talking about it. If I've got the capacity to do it, then just go out and do it yourself. Be that person. Be the different person in the room.
Yeah. And it's so important, as it often we can say, well, we want this change in the world. We want to see it, but actually acting on it is the thing that will make the change happen.
Yep.
Not
Yep.
just going, oh, I would love it if there were more women on boards. I'd love it if there were, more young people. It's like, well, go do that then. Do something about it. And you really did that. Love both of those amazing quotes. Thank you. Right. What is one super practical bit of advice to our listeners? Something that they could just go and do now, do today, do tomorrow, kind of maybe build it as a habit that you think would help them get a bit more joy in their lives?
Work out, and if it means writing it down, write it down, but work out what makes you happy, and don't feel guilty about it. Like, you don't have to show anyone. So if you've got children, a wife or husband, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be them. It could be
Yeah.
you going out, doing you, being your own person. Like, work out what genuinely, if all else fails, there's nothing else left in this life, what would make you happy. And obviously it's okay to be like the traditional ones, or of your family, of your parents, of your spouse or children. But it's just that knowing in yourself what makes you happy. For me, like, if I'm having a down day, I know literally just going outside for a walk is just gonna lift me up. So
Yeah.
it's that knowing what makes you happy, and admitting it to yourself, and not feeling guilty for it. And it might
Yeah.
not be, like I said, it might not be the traditional, but that's okay, because we're all very different people.
Mm. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I often talk about the difference between our like internal stuff and getting the recognition or the support from other people and doing that thing about what really makes you happy. It doesn't matter if it's about something that you want to do, and you're right, you don't need to feel guilty if you're not saying, well, actually it's my kids, it's this, etc. It's like, but what about you? And really understand that. I love that bit of advice. And for you, that simplicity of just going out for a walk, I'm with you on that one. Like, oh, and I think it's oh gosh, what's his name? There's a really lovely writer who's a doctor, and I cannot remember his name, but he had this quote in his book that says, "You never feel worse after a walk," and I'm
Yep.
like, that is so unbelievably true. I've
Uh,
never felt worse coming back from a walk ever. So love it. Right. Thank you. Where can people find out more about you and your work and all of the things that you care about? Because we haven't even got into loads of stuff that you care about, but
yeah.
where can people kind of discover that about you?
So the main one across socials, got my Instagram, which is my name, Shaunagh Brown. So it's Shaunagh, Brown, the colour, Brown, and that will be across Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is where I pretend to be an adult as well. But then you can also get me on my website, which is again just my name, shaunaghbrown.co.uk. And yeah,
Brilliant.
just keep up with it across those.
Fab. And we'll put those into our little notes when we put this out on social as well, so that people can click through to see you. It's really funny you just say about being an adult there. It's actually something I meant to pick up on earlier, about that kind of like, what am I going to do when I grow up question. And my response to that usually is, don't grow up. It's a trick. It's a total trick. Just I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up either, so maybe we can help discover that with each other, or just decide not to do it.
Yeah, because it's along. I was going to say, it's just along with, I guess, another piece of advice is, don't always have a plan. It doesn't make you a bad person to not have a plan. I don't have a plan. I have no idea where I'm going to be in 10 years. Not a clue. But it's okay. I'm okay with that.
I love it in interviews, or I hate it in interviews, when people say, so where do you want to be in 5 years' time? I'm always like, I don't know. Who knows what exciting things may come along, these shiny new exciting opportunities. And I always feel like if I've made a really serious plan, deviating from it would feel bad. So just have a real more, I just want to experience everything and see where it all heads for me.
Just do you. Just do you.
You do you. I'm doing me. You're doing you. I love it. Shaunagh, you've been an absolutely wonderful guest. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful, incredible story with us. I am so excited to watch you on the TV when you're playing rugby, and also to see where, that's the interesting thing, is what happens next will be a really exciting thing for you. Who knows what opportunities may come up in the future, because you're there, you're open to them, you're exploring stuff. I can't wait to see where you go to.
Just going with the flow. No plan, just going with the flow.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shaunagh, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
I totally loved talking to Shaunagh, and honestly, I think I could have talked to her for hours and hours more. We didn't really get into it, but she's also doing some amazing work in helping more women to get involved in sport. She really wants to help young people get involved in sport, because it's had such a fantastic impact on her life and on her career. So do go and follow Shaunagh, find out what she's doing, watch her on the telly when she's playing rugby. All amazing things. Some of the things that just really stood out for me was this attitude about like not moaning, and it's one that I really believe in too, is do something, take an action, ask for help rather than moaning about stuff. So it's take a little bit of control, take some action. I think this idea of kind of really thinking about yourself and understanding what it is that really, her advice is just so great, that really makes you happy, things that really engage you, and to live by that and to be really okay with that. And so many little bits of advice around being able to find the things that you enjoy and that you're good at, and being open and curious to other opportunities. We heard about how she went from being a discus and shot putter to being a hammer thrower, and then getting into rugby, something that 10 years ago she would never have thought about. So being open to opportunities and seeking them out and trying things out is such a good way to find the things that we're passionate about. We're not set at any age. We can still find new things. So thank you to Shaunagh for coming on the WorkJoy Jam. It was such a pleasure talking to you. If you want to find out more about Create WorkJoy and everything that's going on in the WorkJoy world, do head to the website createworkjoy.com. There you will find details about the WorkJoy Way coaching program and about Club WorkJoy, which is an amazing community of people who are all trying to create and cultivate more joy in their working lives and in their lives in general. In Club WorkJoy, we have speakers once a month. We have networking sessions, not the awkward kind, the fun kind. We have questions and answers and a community of people who will get engaged with you and help you to get what you need out of your life and your working life. So do come join us there. You can either get there through createworkjoy.com or through clubworkjoy.com. Find us, come and join us. We'd love to have you as part of our community. I've been Beth Stallwood. Thank you so much for listening to the WorkJoy Jam. Do go and check out our other episodes.